I never really got how to make good looking menus. The menus in my games are functional, yes, but let's be honest, most of them look bad. So for my most recent menu, the weapon select menu for this game, I decided to make a concept drawing for it. I know, very new. It's a pretty simple menu. It has 12 places for weapons on the left side, and there's room for information about the weapon on the left side. And at first I was planning on showing a picture of the guitar or weapon that you had selected, but it turned out that I didn't really have room for that, so I just scrapped it and only made it information. And still, I think it's not the best looking menu, but it looks alright and I'm happy with it. So that's good enough, right? To make the weapon select accessible to controller support, I decided to make the player navigate the menu with the arrow keys, or WASD. Probably WASD, because let's be honest, who uses arrow keys? And to give the menu a better feeling, I decided to add a circle that expands when you are hovering over the spot. It's hard to explain, I'll just show it right now. And that circle also stays big if you have selected that spot. Having different weapons makes it possible to the player to select the weapons that they best fits for them, and thus improving the experience for them. I always try to give the player the best experience possible. Why wouldn't you? It makes sense. You want a good game, don't you? Anyway, let's get into the new guitars that I added. The first new one has nothing really special about it. It's essentially literally the same as the default guitar, but it deals half as much damage. But the thing that it has going for it is that it has a bigger hitbox, which makes it less important to aim well. This guitar is probably very useful for the players that have a hard time with aiming well. The second guitar that I added is probably my favorite in terms of the way it looks. The sprite is meant to look like a guitar that has a speaker in it. Yeah, pretty weird. And the speaker shoots out notes. Those are projectiles that deal a quarter damage when it hits an enemy. The guitar itself deals the same amount of damage as the default guitar, making this guitar objectively better than the default guitar. Yes, objectivity. Yeah. The last guitar that I added is probably objectively the best guitar in the game so far. The initial hit does the same amount of damage as the first guitar that I talked about, but when you hit an enemy, they are instantly set aflame. Yeah, this fire effect deals a quarter damage each second, and it does that 5 times. That means if you hit an enemy with this guitar, they will eventually get 1 3/4 of damage, making this the best guitar. The downside of this guitar is that it takes time to deal that much damage, making it possible for the enemy to still attack you while on fire. And it's harder for you to attack the enemy when they are on fire, because every time they get damage from the fire, they get invincibility frames for half a second, giving you only a window of half a second to hurt the enemy before they get those iframes again. The particle effect of when an enemy is on fire is probably one of my favorite particles I've ever made. I just want to point that out. It's not really something important or something, I just really like the way it looks. Now, if you paid attention to the entirety of the weapon select menu, you would probably have seen that there's a tab called Other on the right side. This tab is for weapons/instruments that aren't guitars, like the default sword/flute, and I only added 2 new weapons of this kind because I had trouble thinking of more. You have 2 slots to put this kind of weapon in, so you can switch between those 2 more easily during gameplay. I did this because it takes like 5 seconds to select a new weapon, and it's quite annoying if you need to do that over and over again when you want to switch between weapons. So 2 slots is good, I think. You switch between these 2 slots by pressing Ctrl, making it basically instant. The first of this kind of weapon that I added is a drum. That's the idea, at least. When you use this, it creates a sound wave pushing back and damaging all enemies that come in contact with this wave. This is mainly very useful when you're in a situation when there are too many enemies around you and you can't go anywhere really. It makes escape easier and makes it easier to dash back towards your guitar without hitting an enemy along the way. I think it's just a very useful one, and probably one you will use often during the game. That's my prediction, at least. I don't know how you play games. The second weapon is less thought out. It's a harp, basically, I think. And when you use it, all enemies on screen get stunned for a few seconds. Not very useful, but I think it's fine, so I will keep it. But I will have to improve it, because the way it works right now, it's not very consistent if it actually works. It's weird. If you have more ideas for new guitars or ideas for other weapons, please put them in the comments. I would really appreciate that, because I am bad at thinking of things like this. So last episode I talked a bit about the level design and how I would approach it. Since then I have started working on the starting area that is planned to be the demo. Before I could do this, I had to make a lot of art for the city part that I was planning on making. So I made a lot of buildings. You'll see them along the way when showing parts of the level, because I forgot to record making them. You will start out in a small area with purple stuff blocking the exit of that small area, and the only way you can get past that stuff is by throwing your guitar through it and dashing to your guitar. Therefore it teaches the player how to use the guitar dash, introducing them to basically the main mechanic of the game. After that part, your path is blocked again, this time by some black stuff. And you have to get through it by using your dodge, teaching the player this part of their movement. Also, it's very useful in parts to just break up the pace a bit, to slow it down. It's very useful. It's just those two things are just very useful to use. Then there's an enemy waiting for you after that. Yeah. This is to slowly introduce the combat. First one enemy, then you'll encounter 2 enemies, and then you'll encounter 3 enemies, each introducing a new type of enemy and also making sure that the player gets used to the combat. And those groups of enemies I just talked about are along a road that you have to follow. And there's a little bit where if you stray away from that road you encounter 3 more enemies, because I want to reward exploration, and if you kill those enemies you get money, and yeah, that's the reward. Maybe I'll put something there, I'm not sure. But when you get past those 3 groups that I first talked about, get to another bend in the road basically, there will be a shop on the top left of the road. I'm not sure what I'll put in there, probably some stuff to heal, and there's again some purple stuff blocking your way. When you get past that purple stuff with your guitar dash, you will get to a small open area with no enemies. In this area you will see a fallen tree blocking the road that you were following so far. This forces the player to go into the forest area. Here I introduced movement-based things. So I wanted to add movement-based things because I didn't want the game to just be battles, 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 battles. That would get pretty repetitive, I think. When you get through the movement-based stuff, you will enter a small area with 2 enemies. And when you enter that area, the 2 exits get blocked off, forcing the player to defeat both of the enemies. When you are done with defeating those enemies, the exits open up again, and then you'll be able to go to the actual open area. The player at that point is past what you could call the tutorial area, an area that is completely linear basically. In this open area you will have options as to where to go. All of them lead to different places with different rewards at the end of them. Some go to the same place but have different routes and some are harder and shorter, and some are longer and easier. It depends, it's all up to you. Exploring this area will reward the player with new weapons and guitars that I just talked about. I'm not going to go in depth here because I want you to explore it yourself when I release the demo, but I will talk about the basics. Before I started making this area, I first made a concept on paper. This was to get an idea of how the layout would be. Places with big areas to walk in and just explore a bit, and some places that are more linear. In the bigger areas you might find some secrets if you just explore places. I don't know how to describe it. Not sure what I'm going to put there. And there will also be some enemies in those areas just walking around. You can avoid them if you want, but you can also defeat them if you want. And in the more linear areas, it will switch between fighting enemies and movement based things. And also small areas with nothing, just to give the player some rest between obstacles and stuff. By the way, if you have any ideas for obstacles and movement based areas, please tell me in the comments. I'm having a lot of trouble thinking of more. Just overall, if you have any ideas for the game, just put them in the comments, or if you hop over to my Discord channel and put the ideas there, that's also fine. I'll also appreciate that. The link to the Discord server is in the description. That was an abrupt end, I just realized. But yeah, sorry for being absent of making new videos for so long. I was on vacation for 3 weeks, so I couldn't really do much. And after that I was sick because I got the second vaccine shot. I am just better for a few days, so yeah. And if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. That would make me really happy. But for now, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Hopefully. Bye!